Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Aloha to my bonus episode in this mini Bishop G5 Night Orb series. Really excited to show you this quite a cold shower type of move by White. Because we have been looking in the whole series what happens after White plays Bishop G5 and we have been playing Knight B to D7. I was pondering on the next move that White can play in this position. We have looked at F4 in the previous videos, Bishop C4, Queen E2, all the possible most frequently played moves. But when I saw first this move, I was like about to fall off my chair. I think it is quite a, I don't want to call it computerish because it has some like psychological effect as well, but the move that we are gonna be looking at in this video, fasten your seatbelts. And also this is honestly this video is aimed for the White players probably because the move that we are gonna be looking at is this bishop going back to E3. Well, quite astonishing, isn't it? You develop your bishop to G5 and then you bring it back to E3. Well, this is what Stockfish, if you turn on the engine, Stockfish is one of the top 5 moves that it recommends, and it also kind of indicates that how good our Knight B to D7 move is if White is going for other moves rather than retreating the bishop back to E3. Well, it is such a pleasant feeling that if you compare your Knight B to D7 to Stockfish's idea, that it is literally saying that move is such a great move to fight against this bishop G5 system. But what is the point of bishop E3? Well, White could have played bishop E3 on move 6, going into another tabia, which is the English attack. And black has several different ways to deal with this system. You can play E6, going for Svenningen type of structures, Gary Kasparov's favorite, but you can simply play E5, and now White can retreat to F3 to more positional approach, Knight B3 to more aggressive, where probably the opposite side castling is gonna happen, and there are tons of games and also theory starting from this position. But what is the difference if White forces us to play Knight B to D7? Well, it is aimed actually against a simple move. On the other hand, I have to mention there are less than 10 games. I don't have access to below 2200 level games, but I have found less than 10 games which happen in this move order, bishop G5, bishop E3, and it has a great score, I have to say, and White is getting comfortable positions because it is putting black players simply out of their preparation, so to say, and it is more like bringing the game to a territory where the better player, the player who has a better understanding of these structures might prevail. So, as I've said, bishop E3 is aimed actually against this move E5, which is pretty dubious move. In the end of this video, we are gonna be looking at the games that have happened in this move order, and we're gonna see there is one game which which involves this e5 move, which is, I don't want to call it blunder, but it is quasi a blunder. So let's discuss why e5 is a bad move, ladies and gentlemen. Now, after e5, white has the strong response, knight to f5. Well, I have to first mention, after white plays e5, black plays after black plays bishop e3, going for the English attack, and if black responds with e5, they generally retreat to f3, b3, or e2. They don't want to go to f5 because it can allow the immediate d5 move, which solves all of the opening problems by black. You can't take because your knight is overloaded. I can recapture the pawn, and after black puts some pressure, we can go bishop b4 or simply d4, and thus this knight f5 move is not preferred by none of the serious chess players. But in this case, if we play e5, knight f5 comes with a pretty damaging effect for the black army. The point being is our knight is cutting off our queen, protecting the d6 pawn, and the d6 pawn is under serious attack. We don't want to go for some sort of a sacrifice where we aim for some long-term compensation, because if you blunder that pawn, it is simply a blunder. It's not a positional sacrifice. So we have to guard that pawn. Now there are three ways to guard that pawn. We can play knight b6, knight c5, or queen c7. Let's look at one by one what happens after knight b6. So knight might look cool on b6 square. Maybe even further it can support the d5 break, undermining some cute little tacticals. However, white has a pretty strong response with queen f3. So queen f3 is anticipating d5 push in the future, and long castle might even make this d5 move harder, and it also gives an extra option to white to recapture if we take on f5 with the queen. So after queen f3, we can play, like, that knight is really annoying, knight on f5. Shout out to Garry Kasparov. It is like water in the desert. Let's say we want to immediately deal with that knight with kicking that knight away with g6. Well, we love to see knight retreating back to g3, and then it has to maneuver itself back to the game with some awkward moves. But knight can go to h6, and if you grab that knight, well, we will have some serious dark square weaknesses, and we will lose our right to castle. Bishop g7 comes with an immediate threat, putting a double attack, so we can't take that knight. And this knight is gonna torture us quasi. Let's say we wanna finish our development with bishop e6. White plays the slow move, bishop e2. No rush, no rush, no rush, no rush. And while most of the Najdorf players might literally hate playing these positions, because you have to make some awkward moves. Like, I don't know, from a human perspective, how I should approach this position. Like, well, computer recommends some ugly looking move with like something like knight f to d7. By the way, with bishop e7 is bishop e6 is also protecting the f7 pawn. But who wants to play like that? I mean, that is absolutely absurd. And knight f to d7, now white can simply start harassing our weak king side with h4, h5. They can play rook d1, and it is really hard to make sense. I mean, you can continue making like useful looking waiting moves, but this position really is not pleasant. So we have seen g6. Let's say we don't want to play that type of awkward position. We play bishop e6. Now white can long castle, and we continue making our useful moves, rook c8, but then bishop g5 comes with a devastating effect. Now, while we can't play bishop e7, our g7 pawn would be hanging. We can't play g6 because now take, knight takes d6 comes with a discovery. You have to play something like ugly like king e8. And in this position, computer engines recommend sacrificing this pawn with knight b to d7, which is so ugly. No, absolutely disgusting. So we have seen what happens after knight b6. Now let's look at other options, which is to guard the pawn with queen c7. So queen c7, queen on c7 is mostly a useful move. I'm sorry, I have to fix my camera. Just give me 1 second. So queen c7 is mostly a useful move in most of the Sicilians. It guards pawn as well. However, it gives white an extra option of immediately playing g4, and g4 pawn is defended by the queen. g5 might be a threat, forcing us to retreat back to knight g8. We can't go to h5, and let's say we are anticipating this move. However, white has a brilliant idea with sacrificing that pawn just for taking control of the d5 square. Now if he grab that pawn, knight d5, ladies and gentlemen, we have to move the queen, and also queen has to guard the c7 for Gorski. Let's say we go queen c6. Queen a5 is also covered by the white's queen, and now queen coming to a5. Now knight c7 is a big threat. We can't go here. We can't go here. And what to do, you know? Like engines recommend playing b6, sacrificing the pawn back, but this is no bueno. This is no bueno. This is absolutely absurd. White has other moves rather than g4 as well. Like they can even grab some space on the queen side, which is such an unpleasant position to play with black. So we have seen why queen c7 is also bad. Now let's look at this some sort of looks like going for a worse endgame type of bailout option with knight c5. Now they can take. We have to take. I mean, if we take, white ruins our king structure, it drops back to e3, and I would love to play this position with white. We will have some difficult times where to put, especially for instance this dark square bishop. It has no prospect, and the engine gives roughly like +1 advantage for white. So we have to take the knight, and after e takes f5, d takes c5. I'm sorry, I don't know why my computer, why my camera is going back to 2004 pretty frequently. So after e takes f5, d takes c5, white plays queen f3, putting some pressure on the b7 pawn, and well, that pawn is alive on f5, and I once again prefer playing this position with black. I mean, you can try, but you know, this c5 pawn and the rook on d1 might look the task of long castling harder for us, and these pawns might come very fast. So having said this e5 move is unplayable. It is literally unplayable. That's the essence of this bishop g5, bishop e3 retreat. So what else to play? Well, in the games that have been played, starting from this position, black has tried e6, black has tried queen c7, h5 has been played, some experimenting knight c5, which is absolutely like an experimenting move. Okay, it put some pressure on e4, but I guess the players that have played knight c5 is playing on their on their own vision. They're trying to understand how they should approach. So the mostly played, but I was saying mostly played, but it has been played 4 times. Then, like for instance, h5 has been played 2 times, queen c7 2 times. So the sample size is not that big. But let's see how the game might evolve after e6. Now, in all of the games that have been played after e6, white has opted for g4 move, which is definitely one of the best moves. You know, it is going in some sort of you know, these fancy rook g1 variations. It reminds me of these rook g1 variations, even though like after g4 we anticipated g5 push with a6, and then white sends h4, you know, b5, rook g1. This is a really lovely looking rook g1 variation, because in for instance in rook g1 Najdorf, now you can play e5, b5, h5 as well. Well, I like rook g1, but this e5 and then the quick d5, well, the games might fizzle out into some, I think, just very slightly advantage for white, but I don't think black has some serious problems. Is okay, we are opting for this bishop d5, which might give us some extra option with rook g3. Well, for me it is the simplest way to deal with this rook g1 Najdorf. However, in the game that we have just discussed, like black played I'm making some random moves. White has this structure. Well, if that's what we are looking for, I would definitely play rook g1 all day, all night, because in rook g1 Najdorf, black is trying to grab some space either on the queen side or king side or in the center. Now, like, this is definitely a preferable position for white, you know. Such a lovely construction. As I said, in most of the games that we are just gonna see just in a few, white has opted for g4, but you can also play a4, which has never been tried, but I think it has the psychological effect of, okay, let's see your plan to black. Say if you wanna develop like naturally, I mean, white's moves white is extremely flexible, and the piece development, the main point of Najdorf, it is the flexibility for black players. But this is not as flexible as it looks like, you know. Like we have to play something like knight c5, you know, trying to free our bishop. Eventually we have to play something like b6, b5. Or going for these positions. So we have seen how the game might develop after the move e6, ladies and gentlemen. There is this also other move that has been played by actually one 2600 grandmaster and one 2700 grandmaster. So funnily enough, this idea of bishop g5, bishop at e3 has been tried at top level for the first time in 2022 Tata Steel Challengers Group by the Belgian Grandmaster Daniel Darda against Jonas Buyul-Behere, the Danish Grandmaster. The game ended in a draw, but I will show you the game. White has some absolutely great prospects right out of like 10 moves. And then after that, Hans Niemann played in Sharjah Masters 4 or 5 months later and won a beautiful game against Azeri Women International Master Gunay Mamatzada. I think they might be some. Hans and Daniel Darda might be close friends. Maybe they inspired each other, and Stockfish inspired this bishop g5, bishop e3 idea. Later on in 2023, in the beginning of 2023, again in Tata Steel Challengers, Vaishali, who just qualified for the women candidates, tried this setup against Turkish Grandmaster Mustafa Yilmaz. And 3 rounds later, and in that game against Mustafa Yilmaz has been one of the most loyal Najdorf enjoyers, and he plays Najdorf mostly against e4 since his childhood, as far as I know. And he definitely got pretty shocked. I mean, he played the rest of the game based on his like general knowledge, you know. And 3 rounds later, Vaishali tried again this bishop g5, bishop e3, this time against Amin Tabatabai. And well, it doesn't have that surprising value because Amin Tabatabai probably looked at how to approach, and in that game, after Queen c7, I can show you those games actually. So after Queen c7, g4, h6, and here computer's favorite move is the knight e5, which was not played by Mustafa Yilmaz, but Amin Tabatabai was probably aware of that and played this move, knight e5, which is a slight improvement over e6. But let's go back to our Queen c7 setups. This move has a downside. If you enjoy playing, for instance, hedgehog type of structures, which I think neither of players can play but would not like to play, because you know then either they will play something like Can Sicilian and go for some more solid systems. So this is the game that Mustafa Yilmaz have played, and you know, White opted for h4 in that game. But let's say this is what the engine recommends more precisely. You can play also h4 too, but you know, trying to restrict that knight going against this knight, and well, it will be difficult White to for Black to prove their equaling chances. Actually, you can include a4, and you know, if Black enjoys hedgehog, as I just said, you can opt for this setup. But I don't think black players, if you're going for knight off for the initial thinking, you don't like to play that. So queen c7, h5 has been tried. We are gonna see that those games as well. Well, you can play h6 too. I think this move has also some sort of a psychological effect that well, black is saying, black is giving white to move to show their cards, you know. After h6, like, white has several different ways to approach this position. I mean, they can go for something like f3 and, you know, Yugoslav type of structure, and the game might go into those territories. They can go for the slow approach with bishop e2, e5, and, you know, this is a looks a little bit sharp, but also very thematic with this d5 move and long castle. You know, just the sample stuff how the game might continue. You can go also for well, you made a mating move. Here you go, buddy. a4, knight c5, putting some pressure on e4, and you know, also a typical structure in Najdorf. So, ladies and gentlemen, having said these, let's see some games that happened in this move order. So, the first game that we have to start is Dani Darda versus Jonas Bulbiere from Denmark. This was the first, I think we can call it that way, the first game that appeared at top level. White e3, and black has no clue what the heck is this bishop e3 and plays b5. b5 is a natural response, you know, in some like rook g5, sorry, rook g1 Najdorfs, but here computer actually hates this move, b5, and white responds correctly with a4. This position is also reminiscent of these like rook g1 and b5 variations. For instance, rook g1, b5, g4, bishop b7, or you can play a4 too, and you know, there are some great games between Nepomniachtchi, Dingliren, and Maxim Vachier-Legrand. You can check them out if you want. But let's go back to our position. Black plays a4. Now, bishop e2 is playable. You can simply take that pawn with the rook and trying to put extra protection to the pawn with like something like queen a1 and trying to blast open black's weak queen side. Black went for bishop b7. Now white took knight c5, and in this position engine says it is +1 for black. Rook b4, targeting that rook looks lovely on b4 square, I'm not gonna lie. And black made well, for human eyes it looks like a natural move, right? You're attacking the rook, and white sacrificed an exchange. This is a reminiscent of a famous Kasparov game, but in that game I think he sacrifices that rook on b7, but that knight is restricted for the rest of the game. It has to be something like that. I can find it and put it in the description maybe. Knight b7, and white lost all the advantage with the short castles, because you know you are always going for the initiative, and after you short castle it loses the initiative. So what he should have done is knight c6, attacking the queen, queen c7, only square, knight b4, knight c5, and then this queen a1 move, putting immediate pressure on that a6 pawn. So white has sacrificed the an exchange, but it is one move away from castling. Black needs 3 moves to short castle. a6 pawn is under attack. You can't push a5 because this might hurt your entire structure, like something like this, for instance. Black is in big trouble. So he didn't went for this sharp stuff with starting with knight c6. He castled, and the game has continued. And I don't want to show the entire game. The game ended in a draw, but white had some great prospects right out of the opening. Now let's go to Hans Niemann versus Gunay Mamatsara from Sharjah Masters 2022. So Hans looked pretty booked up in this bishop g5, bishop e3, but most probably tried to bring his opponent out of their comfort zone, and black opted for e6. And as I've mentioned, you can go for a4 or g4. In this game, g4 happened, a6 anticipating g5 move, a4 grabbing space on queen side, b6 a great move. After black, you can't play b5, it would hang the pawn, and h4, bishop b7, bishop g2. This is also somehow reminiscent of, for instance, this Najdorf, starting with h3, and you know, but that's a blunder in that position. You know, this h3 g4 Najdorf, when white black opts for the Skleningen setup. Okay, let's go back to the game. Bishop g2, rook c8, very interesting idea, and also a common theme in these stuff. Black says, okay, send g5, but now there comes this lovely exchange sacrifice. But Hans has, like, without this move, I think black would be in great shape, but now Hans undermines this pawn chain, going for the e6 pawn. And so white is up on exchange, but the pawn structure is pretty damaged, and king side is also a little bit exposed. And you know, the computer evaluates equal around here, but you know, it is like I think a great weapon if you are trying to bring your opponent out of their comfort zone. So Hans won the game, and we don't want to see the entire game because, you know, we were concentrating on this move order of bishop g5, bishop e3. Now another game. This one was from a 2400 level category in European Individual Championship back in 2022. And again, the same motif here. For instance, I just want to mention this point. Black didn't understand probably the ideas of these, like, rook g1 Najdorfs. While black was not aware of these ideas, and after g5, white is in the driver's seat. Like, the king side is full of vice control, you know, like amazing. Computer evaluates around here +2, just because of this natural looking but also sloppy g6 move. All right, let's go to our the game I have mentioned between in the Tata Steel Challengers, played by Vaishali with the white pieces against 2600 Grandmaster from Turkey, Mustafa Yilmaz. So she tried this, and Mustafa Yilmaz went for queen c7. I don't know if you have seen this maneuver before. After g4, h6, a4, e6, and now she played h4, but this allows pre-thematic d5 break, which is a well time. You can't push e5, that white will simply take, and after d5 it looks like well, you can take, but then bishop b4 comes with an annoying pin, and black is threatening some things. You know, you can take, and black will solve most of these problems. However, like Mustafa Yilmaz didn't go for d5 and went for this typical h5, trying to get the g4 square, which is a mistake. But for human play, I think it is impossible to see why this is a mistake. Let me show you what engine recommends after h5. Black is going for the bishop, but you have this f4 move, bishop f4 move, going for the fork with e5, but after f3, take. Now this pawn is also hanging. Well, let's say something like this, we can simply take that pawn, and white has some advantage in this sharp stuff, which I would never have found, or I don't expect from anyone to find this continuation. But okay, she went for this tempting g6 move, which also happened in Hans Niemann game, but there was a slight difference in that game, that black's knight was not on e5 in one go, so that you don't need to take with the king, you can take with the queen or a knight. But queen, these knights look pretty lowly. So black took the bishop pair, and the game is now, because of the damaged pawn structure and the bishop pair, and also like a Najdorf expert, good luck to you. And Mustafa Yilmaz won the game, even though she had some great prospects right out of the opening. You know, like it definitely took Grandmaster Mustafa Yilmaz out of his preparation, I guess. I'm sorry if he was still prepared for that. So 3 rounds later, ladies and gentlemen, this time she tried bishop g5, bishop e3 against Amin Tabatabai, and he repeated what Mustafa Yilmaz have played. And after g4, h6, a4, now this is where we deviate with knight e5 and going for these active knights, putting immediate pressure on g4. h3 has been played, bishop d7, f4, and she went for this endgame. Yeah, I don't wanna show you the rest of the game. It ended in black winning the game, but you know, black is this time a little bit more prepared than the previous one. All right, what else? So let's see a recent game which was played in Hungary in a tournament between Adam Kozak from Hungary and Sanan Sigro from Russia. I don't know if he switched federation. I'm sorry. I don't know. Gaza Hetani Memorial. And in this game, black went for this h5 move. Well, h5 move looks kind of logical, because if you play, for instance, bishop e3, going for English attack, and after e5, here, f3, now h5 is one of the main moves to anticipate g4 move in the future, making white's queen, just trying to deaccelerate white's queen kingside pawn storm. So from that perspective, he went h5 again, and as far as I see, they are just trying to get a game where, you know, the player who understands the structure better might prevail. So this game was a pretty long game, and you know, just to bring your opponent out of your below territory, it is a nice example. Okay, so our last game, which was played in Portuguese league by a 2600 Turkish grandmaster with black pieces and a 2400, I assume, from Portugal. His name is Alex Uton Garrido, and he also opted. And also, I have to mention this game. This game happened in 2022. This game is also before these Tata Steel games. And black went, probably first time seeing, went for some sort of a Dragodorf type of setup with H5 included, and the knight is on B to D7, which shows like it is surprising value, you know. Although by black looked like they equalized right after here, but the game ended in a one move blunder, which is in this case the queen c5 move, because of the threats takes and rook e5. Well, if you simply throw that one to recapture that one, black can also throw their bishop on b3, but rook e5 first attacking the pawn, and then the next move, now white is up a pawn and rooks might become pretty active, and white won this game. So ladies and gentlemen, just as a surprising value, and I think if you are trying to bring your opponent to some sort of a comfort zone, to bring out your opponent from their comfort zone, I think this bishop g5, bishop e3 is such a lovely idea that you can also employ. On that note, I think this is my last video in this bishop g5 mini series. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, I really appreciate it if you smash that button, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll see you guys in my next videos.